Okay, so it does look like we have some individuals, some GARA members. And so if you wouldn't mind, if I call on you, if you wouldn't mind just telling us who you are and what housing authority you're with, we'd appreciate it. Maybe just let us know too, do you have public housing? Do you have RAD? Just so that we maybe can try to guide the conversation to something that's more specifically helpful for you. So I'll start with, I'm just going to go across the screen. I'll start with John.
John Janik. I'm with Decatur Housing Authority, filling in for Doug Faust, the executive director, and we have RAD PBRA housing here.
Okay, thank you. Trey?
Trey McElveen. I'm with Athens Housing Authority. We are all public housing.
Okay, great. And then Austin.
Hey there, I'm Austin Chance. I'm with the Department of Community Affairs.
Oh, great, great. Okay, thank you. All right, so because we have new individuals on the call, I'm going to introduce who we are and the process quickly, and then we'll move into the presentation. So my name is Marjorie Willow, and my colleague Bill Wasilewski is also on the line, and we are with Mullen and Lonergan Associates, and we've contracted with the Department of Community Affairs and the Georgia Housing Finance Agency to conduct this statewide housing needs study across the state. We also have Christopher Dunn with us, and Christopher will also lead the presentation with Bill. And Christopher is working very closely with responding to requests when you might send in your survey or how you have questions. He is the contact person. His email address is on the survey. You might have seen it if you've looked at it already. And between Christopher, Bill, and myself, if you email a question, then we work to get the answer to you as quickly as possible. So the purpose of conducting this survey on your inventory in each of the housing authorities across the state is because one of the things that we're doing as part of our statewide housing needs assessment is trying to identify where the housing need exists, whether it's geographically, so urban or rural areas, southern or some other region in the state, as well as among what household types, and income levels, and any other findings that we can garner from the data that you're submitting in your responses, we want to learn about. One of the purposes of this study that DCA has said they want us to help them do is look at our current policies, our current funding programs, and identify, should we be making changes to a better address housing need, affordable housing need across the state of Georgia? And so one of the things that we wanted to undertake as part of that process was to find out what is the housing, the affordable, the needs among the public housing authorities across the state, whatever those might be. And so that's the reason for this this survey. And it is detailed and it does ask for a lot of information, but then it will allow us to analyze the data at different levels. So one of the reasons, for example, we ask for what county in which you're located. We want to see, are there some important trends that we should be looking at, whether it's an urban county or rural county in the Atlanta metro area, maybe a group of counties in this contiguous counties in the state are experiencing need in a different way than everyone else. We're trying to think of different ways that we can sort of slice and dice the information we're gathering to better guide DCA and housing finance authorities housing policies. So do they need to create pilot programs? Do they need to just maybe modify some of the programs that they have in place now to better direct resources to where they're needed even more? So that should kind of give you an idea of what we're looking to do through this study. But it really, in order for us to do that and assist the housing authorities in Georgia to the best of our ability and DCA's ability, is to get as many of the housing authorities to respond to this survey. So any questions before we get into the survey itself? Okay, so we are recording the survey, and we're going to walk through the example submitted by the Marietta Housing Authority, and they are primarily a RAD housing authority with housing choice vouchers. And this presentation is being recorded so that when you are working on your survey, you can go onto GARA's website and open up this recording and get to the point where we're actually working through the presentation, and that might help you, answer the questions if you're having questions that about how, what information, where should I put this information, or what should I put in this spot. So we're hoping that's another tool that's available to you. So I will turn it over now to Christopher and Bill.
Perfect. Thanks, Marjorie. So I'm Christopher Dunn. As Marjorie mentioned, I'm working with M&L. I'm with Highland Planning. We're a Rochester-based, Rochester, New York-based consulting firm. And my email is the one you'll see in this survey. So when you do complete your survey and you attach it to your email and send it, it's going to be going to me. So I'm just going to show you from the start what it looks like when you open up this survey. And then, as Marjorie mentioned, we are going to be looking at a completed survey today, and Bill's going to walk us through some of the answers that were provided for that by that respondent. So you'll see when I first open up the spreadsheet, I'm immediately prompted about macros, and just for those who aren't aware, macros are just a simple way to automate otherwise pretty complex tasks in Microsoft Word, in Microsoft Excel, and other Microsoft products. This message might look a little bit different depending on the operating system you're using. In this case, I'm using a Mac, and this is what it looks like for Macs. I will just go ahead and click Enable Macros, and I'll show you exactly how macros are going to be used later on. But for your purposes, just know that you'll see this. Don't be afraid. Just click Enable Macros, and then you can enter into the survey. All right, and then here's our survey. As you can see, it's for the City of Marietta's Housing Authority. I'll just walk through some of these initial drop-down menus up top, and then I'll turn it over to Bill, and he can get more into the content of the survey. So right here, the first item you're going to encounter is a drop-down menu for Public Housing Authority. So if you click this arrow here on the right, you'll see a whole list, pretty much alphabetical, of housing authorities in the state of Georgia. Just scroll down until you find your housing authority and select that one. In this case, of course, Marietta has already been selected, so we'll just leave that alone. And then you'll see a very similar drop-down menu just below that. This one is for county. As I believe Marjorie mentioned, we're interested in kind of the differences between different locations, rural versus urban housing authorities. So this was just an easy way for us to capture some information around that. So again, just click the arrow on the right and you will see a whole list in alphabetical order of counties throughout Georgia. Just scroll down until you find the county that you want to select. And again, Cobb County has already been selected, so we'll just leave that as it is for now. And then down here, you'll have some information about addresses of the main office, contact information for the Public Housing Authority's executive director, and then also we like to just include a little bit of contact information for the person who's actually completing the survey. And it's very possible that person will be the executive director, in which case, not necessary to fill this out as completely, but just something to be aware of. There's contact information for the executive director and then also for the person completing the survey. So if you scroll down, you'll then see the beginning of the survey. And at this point, Bill, if you want to just speak to some of these items in the first page of the survey, we can do that.
Sure. Thanks, Christopher. I just want to call your attention, everyone, to the term. So it says in that blue box, we're looking for your answers to reflect the time period as of October 1st, 2021. And we just wanted to have a standardized, the reason for that is we wanted to have a standardized data set from a point in time. So when you answer all these questions, really focus your data and your answers as of October 1st, 2021, to the extent possible. So the first box there, and again, I did want to call out these little question mark boxes on the side. And Christopher, maybe if you want to go over that. If you have questions at any point during these, or if you specifically want to look at these are just little prompts and guides to help you answer the question in terms of what types of data that we're using. So whenever you see an orange question mark box, just roll your mouse over that and just see it. It'll give you prompts as to what type of data we're looking for, and it explains the question a little bit more fully. So it's critical on this first box. We're trying to get a sense of your overall public housing and RAD inventory as of October 1st, 2021. So for this case in Marietta, it appears as if that they have zero public housing units. Apparently, they've converted all their public housing to RAD units, and so because of that, they're showing 164 RAD units in their inventory. And then they also show an additional number of 150 Section 8 new construction or substantial rehab currently going in their inventory. And they have that's their full inventory. That would be their again RAD units and Section 8 new construction or substantial rehab units. They don't have any Section 8 mod rehab, but you can see the types of questions we're asking. We want very prescribed and very exact inventory of the types of units that you have in your inventory. So be they Section 8, if they're a preservation unit, if they're outside public housing and RAD. In Section 8, they're a local affordable housing unit that was developed. Any other affordable housing unit that was developed. The idea of this chart is to get a full inventory that is under your all your programs. You want to scroll down, Christopher, to the next box. And then very similarly, we want to get a very good picture from your housing choice voucher program and really getting a sense of what that looks like. And if you go through the list, we want to see the total number of vouchers in circulation. And it's really critical when you're focusing on this box to really show what the vouchers you have circulation versus the number of vouchers you have authority to put out on the street. And those are usually always different. Housing authorities need to have the budget authority to put vouchers on the street, and we're really interested in that key data piece. So in this case, in Marietta, they have 2,498 vouchers in circulation, but they have the authority to put 2,727 out on the street. And those are really key data points that we want to track and get a sense of. That tells us a lot about the local housing market in a number of different ways, and that's why we're doing that. The next two on the list there are vouchers porting in and porting out. In this case, they have way more vouchers porting in from somewhere else in the country. And again, that also tells us a lot about what's going on in the local housing market when we take those two things into consideration. So we really want to see how, get a sense of that, those two pieces of data as you're filling this out. Another critical piece is project-based vouchers. And so in this case, they have a total of 448 project-based vouchers. That's also critical from us, from our perspective, so we can see those types of units that have a subsidy, rental subsidy attached to the unit, and not necessarily a person. And again, that tells us a lot about what's going on locally. And then again, this housing authority also has tenant-based vouchers. So they have 2,553 tenant-based vouchers currently out on the street. And so again, that's really critical piece of information that we want to see what's going on both from a project-based and tenant-based voucher perspective. And then in this case, tenant-based vouchers are returned by applicants. So if a housing authority, in this case, provided a voucher and then it was returned for whatever reason, that's interesting to us because it tells us either there's not enough inventory in the market, and that number tells us as well as a lot about the housing market. Moving down, if you have any home tenant-based rental assistance, so a number of housing authorities may be working with their local PHA, in which their local PHA has provided federal home dollars to them to carry out a tenant-based rental assistance program. We really want to know that. Again, that's another form of subsidy that is provided locally, and we want to get our hands around what's going on locally. If you have any tenant-based rental assistance going on that's funded with home dollars. In this case, there wasn't any. And then go down a little bit, Christopher. You could. Oh, not that much. Up a little. Yep, good, perfect. And then the next set of information is we want to get a real understanding of any program-based vouchers. In this case, there's not any program-based vouchers, any unused program-based vouchers. So there's none of that going on. But if there is in that circumstance, we really want to understand what that is and the number of vouchers that are program-based that are coming into the community. In this housing authority, there is 174 vouchers that they have under their control, and of those, 57 are unused. Again, that's interesting for us too, because again, those are specialized vouchers that have been awarded to the community, and if they have a reason that they're not being able to place the VASH vouchers for whatever reason, that again helps us paint a picture of the conditions within the local municipality. And then finally, waitlist. We really want to understand your waitlist. And the question here that we want to decipher and differentiate from your housing authority's perspective is if you have a combined public housing waiting list, or if you have, if it's all your public housing units have one wait list, we really need to have you provide a number as to what that wait list is. And then again, same thing for the project-based vouchers. So they obviously do not have any public housing, so they wouldn't have a wait list, but they have 373 persons on their voucher wait list. So I want to take just a breath here. Is there any questions on things that we're asking here that you want to either have questions on or you want us to dive deeper into the question? Be happy to do that. Is there any questions to this point?
Bill, this is Marjorie. I just want to make one more comment on line 91 where we asked for the total number of people on the voucher wait list. If you click on that question mark box, it actually is the number on your voucher wait list plus RAD. We don't say that, but we want the combination. So, and I know there's at least one RAD housing authority on the call today, maybe two. So just to point that out.
Great, thanks.
I have a quick question. We have some units that are part of a tax credit partnership. Do you want me to include those units?
Absolutely, and those would be part of your other affordable housing. So Chris, if you could scroll up a tad. And maybe we address this later on. I just want to see here. So it would be the number of other affordable housing units there. See here, it says total number of other affordable housing units. If those are tax credit, and is that what that says on that? I just want to make sure, Chris, if you could just roll over the question mark and read what that says. The question mark. I'm assuming that that's going to be so down at the bottom, this line 68.
Yeah. So it says this question refers to any affordable housing units not covered by any of the other categories.
Right. So to your point, Trey, that's where you would drop your tax credit units in there. And then again, we would ask as we get down lower, there's a at the very end of this page, there's a box that talks about providing you, yep, right here, you can probably, down below, when you keep going down. So this section, you'd want to list those tax credit deals separately so that a tab is generated and we can find out more about those, but I'll get into that in just a second.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Is there any other questions? Okay, very good. So you wanted development information. I can generally go through this quickly. And so the next step is that part of the survey is that we want to get into detailed information based on each one of your developments. And so we're asking you to first, if you go down a little bit, this kind of a dual discussion here. So if you go down, see this gray area. So in that area, we want you to include public housing and RAD developments, and you have to list them out specifically in that gray area. And you want to do that first. I understand that, or I see that the generate tabs button there is first, but you really need to fill out all your developments there so that a tab is created. And so after you fill out all your public housing, RAD, and or other related affordable housing developments, you would want to fill those in there and then hit generate tabs. And when you do that, so go ahead, Chris, hit generate tabs, it'll create for us a tab for each one of those developments. And then we're going to ask you very specific questions related to each one. So in the case of Marietta, the first one that they've listed for us is called Branson Walk. And so very similarly, we want a specific address and the development name, the county and zip code, and then the number of buildings. Number of buildings is critical, so we want to get a full picture of what that full development looks like from not just a units perspective, but also from a buildings perspective, and so that you fill that out on those sections. Again, we're asking you very specific questions about the type of units that are in the development. So for Branson Walk, my sense is that these were formerly public housing units, and all of them were converted to RAD. So there's 114 RAD units here and 0 public housing units. And additionally, it appears as if they also have some sort of project-based voucher attached to these units that happened as part of the conversion, since there's a subsidy attached to those units. And then you can see other kind of questions that we're asking. Are there any market rate units attached to this? So in this case, there aren't any. And then we're asking you the number of subsidized units by bedroom size. And so we have efficiencies 1, 2, 3, or 4 or more. And so you'd want to fill those out, and those should total, the total number of units. So in this case, they have 112 bedrooms and 1 bedrooms and 2 2-bedrooms. That equals 114. So we're good. And then another critical piece is the average vacancy rate for the year. So 3.2 is, it seems like this is pretty fully occupied. This is probably turnover. But again, another great data point for us to track the demand for these types of units within the municipality. And again, we're trying to get a comparison across all housing authorities to see what those demands look like. And that's the purpose for that question. Go down a little to the next section, Chris. And then we want to get into a little bit about who's living there, or what are these, what we call set aside, subsidized units set aside. So if these were only elderly, we'd want to know that. If you have specific set asides related to developmentally disabled or mentally challenged, we'd want that. Same for physical, elderly, and disabled. Again, we're just trying to get characteristics of the type of units that are set aside in that development for special needs housing. In this case, there were no set asides assigned, so which is fine. Then the next set is we want to look more closely at those set asides. If there were set asides, we'd really want to see what those are from an income perspective to see, if they're for the very low or what types of units that they're targeted to. And those are pull down menus, as Chris has shown you, so you could put 0 to 30 if they're set aside for 0 to 30 or whatever income range that they're looking for. But we really want to be able to see what those set aside units look like from an income perspective, again, to tell us really detailed information about the demand for specific units at various income tiers. If you go down a little bit, Chris. So this gets us into some more detail about the development. And so we're asking if at any point, if any of these units are planned to be development. So if your housing authority, for example, is in the process of going through RAD and you are planning to demolish subsidized units as part of that RAD conversion, we really want to know what's planned for those units to be demolished. So if you had 100 units, plan to demolish 20, we'd want to see 20 in that line item just to get a sense of what that is. Same thing if the development is mixed income and then there's market rate units, if there are any that are there to be demolished, we want to know about that. And then we'd also want to talk about not only demolition, but any units proposed to be renovated. So if you're going through a RAD conversion that incorporates renovation of those units in addition to the conversion from a subsidy perspective, we really want to get a full understanding of how many units are proposed to be renovated and if any of those are market rate to be renovated. And then taking that even next step even deeper. So if your RAD conversion involves not only renovation and demolition, but there's also a tax credit component, that's you're going to the tax credit finance agency for either rehab financing or new construction as part of the RAD conversion. We really want to get a handle on what is being proposed from a development perspective. If there's, how many units are being proposed to be developed. And in this case, there really wasn't any of that going on, so there's no answer to that, which is fine. We also want to get a sense of the age of these structures. So in this case, this development was built between 61 and 64. Any rehabilitation that's taken place, if a substantial rehabilitation has taken place during that time, and I think, what do we mean by that? Is that over 50,000 per unit? I think is what our TAC key is. Is that what that says there? Yes, 50,000. So if your housing authority was rehabbed this building, so say for example in this case, they went through a substantial rehabilitation of over 50,000 per unit in 1984. We just really want to know what that was, year that it went through that, and if it was a tax credit deal, the year it was placed in service. We'd really want to know that as well, just to get a sense of, from a subsidy perspective, how long that placed in service date will last from an affordability perspective. And then really getting into the site-based waiting list. So this is a key point I want to focus on. So in this case, they are telling us that they have 172 persons on this site-based waiting list. And then really the bottom line is the period of affordability. So this is how long you have until the subsidies, the rental subsidies expire on this project. And so in this case, the project-based vouchers will expire in 2034. I wanted to make a real clear point real quickly before we go any further on the site-based waiting list. And Marietta is not on the call today, and I wanted to ask them about that. When we get to the next development, they did not list any waiting list on the site-based waiting list. And so we are just questioning internally, Marjorie and I, this morning as to why that was. Are those, did they forget to put the site-based waiting list on that line in the next development? And you'll see that when we get to it. Or are those units part of a broader housing authority-wide waiting list? So we do want to follow up, and we will go back. But really, if your housing authority has site-based waiting lists for each of its developments, please incorporate what those are on each of the tabs for each of the developments. And then finally, I think this is the last one. Yeah, okay. And then we just really want to know what the subsidy was used for the development of these units, either from a rehab development or a significant rehabilitation, substantial rehabilitation program. And so we're just asking you to check the box. So these units there was no renovations so far. So in this case, project-based Section 8 was used to finance this, and they didn't have any other local funds related to that. So you can see Section 202, if it was a 202 development, 811, if it was a National Housing Trust Fund. And to that point earlier, I think it was either Trey or John asked about whether it's tax credit. If there were tax credits involved, you just check the low-income housing tax credit box there. If it's a tax credit only project, you would just solely check tax credit and lay out what those were. And then down below, we've provided a box for comments. So anything that you feel needs to be narrated, if it's specifically, we'd be really interested if you're planning a RAD conversion, really to lay out, hey, we're in the process, we're planning a RAD conversion in 2022, we're going to demo 13 units and add 5, just be really descriptive or provide any kind of additional detail on that development that you feel pertinent, that's not really adequately captured, or any planning that's going to be involved in the next year or two on that site that's going to change the complexion of that development would be really important to learn. So before we get to the next tab, is there any questions on any of that? I know it's a lot of information in a very short period of time. Okay, so we can go to the next tab. So again, this is just a secondary tab. So this one is for Fred G. Hull Homes. And again, I won't kind of bore you as I did the last time. I did want to call you to that issue that we showed earlier, but in this case, this is just RAD units. So they have 50 RAD and 50 vouchers. You can see here the average vacancy is even tighter here. They only have a 2% vacancy right here. But if you go down to that last box, one of those last boxes there. So here, right here, see, they did not provide us with a number on the site-based waiting list, line 52. And so that was a question for us. I'm assuming that they would track a site-based waiting list on this project. So they should have filled out that number, and we're going to go back and follow up with Mariette on that. But again, we want to be consistent. If you have a specific site-based waiting list, and again, if there for some reason you don't have a site-based waiting list and it's a part of your overall inventory, maybe just note that in the box below so we don't have to reach back out to you and just say, hey, the overall wait list is these units are part of our overall housing authority wide wait list, which is X, and that would cover that so that we're not confused if we think it's a site-based or should be a site-based wait list, what the reason is not. So Marjorie, did I miss anything, or did you want to add anything that I went over too quickly?
No, I think that's a pretty good explanation using this as an example. So I would say let's open it up to questions now.
Okay.
If there's no questions, let me say, on behalf of DCA, our team here with David and Jack Popper's not here, but we understand that this is potentially time consuming, but we're really asking for y'all to invest the time, and we believe it's going to be helpful for all the PHAs statewide. So thank you for all your